What if I told you that some people can literally taste a word, or that they can see a beautiful color when they hear a piece of music? It sounds a little like a superpower, right? Well, for some people, it's just how their brain works. Today, we're going to dive into the incredible world of synesthesia, where the senses get beautifully tangled up.
I want you to just picture this for a second. You're eating a perfectly cooked steak. And as you taste it, your mind is just flooded with the color blue. And no, that's not some fancy metaphor. That is the real, everyday experience of Professor Sean Day. For him and others like him, the world isn't divided into neat little sensory boxes. It's all one big, blended experience.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What if your brain didn't bother separating sight from sound or taste from touch? What if those wires just crossed? Well, that's the big question we're getting into today. So what do we actually call this thing? It's called synesthesia. The name comes from Greek and literally means to perceive together. And it's a totally real neurological phenomenon. Firing up one sense, like hearing a sound, automatically and involuntarily triggers a completely different one, like seeing a color. And let's get one thing straight. This is not an illness or just a vivid imagination. It's just a different and frankly fascinating way of experiencing reality.
So how do we know it's real and not just something people are making up? Well, it follows a very strict set of rules. For a synesthete, the letter A isn't just red on a Tuesday, it's always that same shade of red their entire life. They can't just turn it off any more than you can decide to stop hearing the sound of my voice right now. It just happens. It's automatic, it's consistent, and it's totally involuntary.
Okay, so you're probably thinking this must be incredibly rare, right? Like a 1 in a million kind of thing. And for a long time, that's what scientists thought too. But that was because they were just waiting for people to come forward. Once they started actually looking for it, they found something that blew their minds. About 1 in every 23 people has some form of synesthesia. That's more than 4% of the population. It's way more common than we ever imagined.
All right, so the big question is how? What is actually happening inside the brain that causes this? To figure that out, we've got to peek under the hood and look at the brain's wiring. Turns out, it's all about some very interesting crossed wires.
The leading idea is this thing called hyperconnectivity. Here's a cool way to think about it. A baby's brain is like a super overgrown garden with connections sprouting up absolutely everywhere. As we get older, a process called pruning comes along and trims away all the connections we don't need. But the theory is that in synesthetes, the brain's gardener just missed a few spots. It leaves behind these extra little pathways between sensory areas that aren't normally connected. And scientists have a couple of theories about how this sensory chatter works. First is the leaky neighbors idea. The parts of your brain that process letters and colors are physically right next to each other. So the idea is that the signal from one area just kind of leaks over the fence into the other. Then there's the faulty feedback loop theory. This suggests that all sensory information goes to a central hub, but on the way back, the signal gets sent to the wrong department. It's like the brain's main operator makes a wrong number call, lighting up the color area when it was supposed to be silent.
Okay, time to bust a quick myth. For decades, everyone thought synesthesia was way more common in women. Some early studies even showed a 6-to-1 ratio. But it turns out that was just because women were more likely to volunteer for these kinds of studies. Once scientists went out and started testing everybody, not just volunteers, they found the real story. The ratio is actually 1-to-1. It was never about biology, just a classic case of a skewed sample.
So we know it's more common than we thought, and we have some pretty solid theories about the brain wiring. But what does it actually feel like? What do people experience? Well, get ready, because this is where things get really wild. It goes way beyond just seeing colored letters. So you've got the classic grapheme-color, where letters and numbers have their own distinct colors. That's the one most people have heard of. But then you have chromesthesia, where a sound, like a C sharp on a piano, isn't just a sound, it's a burst of swirling blue light. And it gets even more abstract. With spatial sequence synesthesia, the months of the year aren't on a flat calendar. They exist in 3D space around the person, maybe like a giant hula hoop they can physically walk through from January to December. And if you thought that was strange, just hold on. One of the rarest forms is called lexical-gustatory synesthesia. This is where words have tastes. And yeah, it can get weird. There's a well-documented case of one person for whom the name Derek consistently tastes like earwax. I know, it's bizarre, but for that person, it's as real and consistent as the taste of coffee. Now, this next one is wow. It's called mirror touch synesthesia.
Imagine you see someone get a gentle tap on their left shoulder. At that exact same moment, you physically feel a tap on your left shoulder. It's been called a kind of supercharged empathy, where the line between you and another person gets incredibly blurry. And get this, it's not even limited to the five senses. For some people, abstract concepts have entire personalities. It's called ordinal linguistic personification. So the number 4 isn't just a number, it might be a gentle, kind, but shy mother figure. Tuesday could be a grumpy old man who just wants to be left alone. It's like that brain is running a little soap opera with numbers and days of the week.
So, with all this extra sensory information flying around, you gotta wonder, is this actually useful? Does it come with any perks? Well, the answer is a big yes. This cross-wired brain can actually come with some pretty cool cognitive superpowers. Okay, let's take memory. When most of us see a phone number, our brain just stores the digits. But if you have grapheme-color synesthesia, your brain automatically stores a unique pattern of colors right along with those numbers. So when you try to recall it, you have 2 clues instead of 1, the number and the color pattern. It's like having a secret built-in memory hack that's always turned on.
And what about creativity? Well, there's a really interesting connection here, but it's specific. Synesthetes are amazing at what's called convergent thinking. That's the ability to find a single hidden connection between seemingly random ideas. And that makes total sense, right? Their brains are literally built to make unusual connections. But what's surprising is that they show no real advantage in divergent thinking, which is more like brainstorming, coming up with 100 different uses for a brick.
And look, this isn't just some interesting finding in a science lab. This unique way of perceiving the world has literally shaped our culture. Some of the most famous artists in history have used their synesthesia to create timeless masterpieces. Take the famous abstract painter Wassily Kandinsky. He was a synesthete who heard color. For him, a trumpet didn't just make a sound, it was a brilliant, piercing yellow. A deep cello note was a rich, dark blue. When you look at his art, you're not just seeing random shapes and colors. He was literally painting music. He was putting the symphonies in his head onto a canvas for all of us to see. It's the same with the author Vladimir Nabokov, who wrote Lolita. He had grapheme-color synesthesia, and for him, the letter M wasn't just pink. It was, in his words, a fold of pink flannel. You can almost feel that texture in his writing, can't you? This extra sensory layer gave him this incredible palette to work with, which is a huge part of why his writing feels so rich and alive.
Okay, but here's the final plot twist, and it's a big one. While the tendency to be a synesthete is probably genetic, the actual specific pairings, like A being red, are often learned. A huge study found that a bunch of synesthetes had the exact same color-to-letter map as a set of colored alphabet magnets they played with as toddlers. It's like their brain had the genetic blueprint to build these bridges, but their childhood toys told them exactly where to build them. And that leaves us with this one final mind-bending question. If the wiring is genetic, but the associations themselves are learned, what does that mean for the rest of us? Some researchers are even finding that non-synesthetes can be trained to create these links. So it makes you wonder, maybe we're all born with these extra connections. And maybe, just maybe, your brain has a hidden symphony inside it too. And you just need to learn how to listen.